Welcome back to my channel, Clips. Today, we're diving into an important episode that sheds light on the ongoing situation in America and how those in government are fostering division among racial groups. I'm here to be a voice that isn't afraid to tackle these tough conversations head on. This video is packed with content, so let's jump right in. I added the introduction to this video after finishing the editing process, but I feel it's crucial to highlight the hypocritical stance that Jasmine Crockett takes regarding interracial relationships, as it provides important context for this video. It highlights the stark contrast between two people of color in Congress, Jasmine Crockett and Byron Donalds. They hold completely different views and mindsets regarding America and their fellow citizens. One speaks the truth, even when it challenges his own community, because he understands that's the genuine way to make a difference. On the other hand, we have a race hustler who aims to create division for her own and her party's gain. Watch and decide for yourself who you believe is truly in the right.
It's a clapback you've got to see. You probably heard what Jasmine Crockett said about Byron Donalds on that guy Lenny's radio show. She sat there and called out his wife because of her race and then went on this rant. Now, I interviewed Byron Donalds a little while ago. You've got to see his reaction. Do not stop watching this. It's going to blow your mind.
And if we continue to put people into office, and that even means some of our skinfolk who definitely are not our kinfolk, such as Byron Donalds, who are going to continue to say that, the fact that you sitting around talking about life was better under Jim Crow.
Now, I want to pause right quick. If you didn't catch my other video, what Byron Donalds said about Jim Crow is that the truth is families were together more during that period of time than they are right now. That's just the facts. It is what it is. The single parent household rate was much lower in the black community. As I said before, we had an 80% two-parent household rate in 1965, 80% two-parent household rate. That was considered a crisis because it was too low. It should have been 95%, which was the white two-parent household rate. Fast forward to right now, 2025, you're talking about a 70 to 75% single parent household rate in the black community. And among whites, it's about a 25% single parent household rate, which would bring you lower than the 80% among the black community, which was an emergency. Little bit of context. Let's keep rocking.
Is this because you don't understand history? Or literally it's because you married a white woman and so you think that whitewashed you?
You married a white woman, so you think that whitewashes you. Well, I had Byron Donalds on. He's running for governor of the great state of Florida, and it was just a great conversation. But he went there. You got to see this.
First and foremost, don't talk about my wife. Keep my wife out of this. Ain't got nothing to do with her. You could talk to me about policy anytime you want to. Secondarily, there was a couple of times on the campaign trail last year where I know I was booked to be on stage or to be in debate with Jasmine, and all of a sudden her schedule changed. She had a conflict, whatever the case might be. So if she wants to do this, if she wants to have that debate, I'm easy to find. You ain't got to look hard for me. I'm 6'2". You can find me. It's pretty easy. Number three, and most importantly, this demonstrates, frankly, the racism in the Democrat Party, because they don't have a problem when Kamala Harris is married to a white man or when Ketanji Brown Jackson's married to a white man, right, as long as they subscribe to the politics of the Democratic left. As long as you do that, everything is fine. But if you're a conservative, but your spouse happens to be white or of another race, then all of a sudden it's a problem. This is the racism that occurs in the Democrat Party. I'm sick of it, tired of the BS. I tell any one of them who have a concern about me and what they think my views are, debate me. And if you don't want to debate me, Google me. There's plenty of information out there because I know that I have the facts. I have the information. I can back my stuff up. All they can do is throw out innuendos, throw out talking points. And the last thing I'll say about Ms. Crockett, and I'm going to leave it alone. Jasmine, I don't use talking points. Nobody tells me what to say. And so I know how to deliver a message because I have facts, I have logic, I use economics, I don't get into hyperbole. So if you are concerned about some of the things that I say find a show. It could be whatever show you want to. We'll sit there and do it. We'll have a good time along the way, and you'll go ahead and be defeated very quickly.
Hey, there's so much I want to say. There's a lot there. First of all, Jasmine Crockett, not you hiding, not you running from Byron Donalds. Is that what we doing? Are you big and bad, cussing and fussing and carrying on? Talk about, oh, you think you whitewash because you got a white wife? Well, okay, if you feel that way and you want to say that on the Breakfast Club, then why not go to wherever you were scheduled to go on more than one occasion and talk to the man face to face. Why not do that? Okay, you're in politics, he's in politics. You're in the house, he's in the house. I'm sure you guys see each other in DC. I'm sure you guys are sometimes, like you said, scheduled to be at the same place in front of a microphone being able to talk. So why not do that? That should be how this is handled. Let's have a discussion. Let's have a debate. Let's go on the podcast and you can express yourself freely. That's what I would do. And you know what I would do if I was Byron Donalds? And I know he knows. He's a smart guy. And shout out to him running for governor of Florida. I hope he wins. I think he'll be able to win. But getting back to what I was saying, I think what he's going to do is point out the hypocrisy, as I've done before. Listen, you have all these people in the Democratic Party married to white women when they're not white. Black people, Indian people, biracials like Kamala Harris, they're married to white people and nobody says a word. And as a matter of fact, if you say something about it, you'll be called a racist. If you pronounce Kamala's name wrong, you'll be called a racist. But Jasmine Crockett goes on the Breakfast Club, a nationally syndicated radio show, and says that a man is whitewashed for being married to a white woman, and that's not racist. Let's be consistent. If it's racist one time, then it's racist all the time. Don Lemon, and you're married to the white man, I don't care. My only issue is the hypocrisy. A Don Lemon will get on TV and say that the white man is the most dangerous in the world. The white man is the devil, the scourge of the earth. He'll say all that and then go right home to a white man, living in the bed with a white man. It's like, okay, if you're doing that at home, then why would you say something like that on air? It doesn't really add up. And when you do things like that that don't add up, that means you're a liar. That means you're a hypocrite. And you'll say pretty much whatever they put in front of you to say. You have no agency. You have no voice of your own. You're just a tool to be used by them. You're not an independent person. You're not an independent thinker. The hypocrisy, the double standard, the racism, the very thing that they say we are on the right from the left is what they are on the left. What does the left say? You guys are racist. You guys are hateful. They say all that, but really that's them. And what they're doing when they say that about us, it's classic projection. And I think I'll leave that right there for now.
The hypocrisy is astounding. Without independent media, we'd be completely in the dark, forced to accept whatever politicians and mainstream media choose to tell us. That's a frightening reality to consider. I want to kick things off by highlighting that disgraceful and racist interview with Jasmine Crockett, contrasted by the intelligent and poised response from Byron Donalds. He is truly a class act. As a Florida resident, I will be voting for him without hesitation. Now, let's dive into the rest of the video. In Congress, Representative Jasmine Crockett of Texas doesn't just stir the pot, she exploits it to the fullest. Let's highlight some of her many hateful and racist remarks. She casually throws around racial slurs, labeling white people as whiny, mediocre, and incompetent. And shockingly, no one seems to bat an eye. Imagine if a white congresswoman dared to say, "black tears," or referred to mediocre black people. She would be out of DC before breakfast. So why does Crockett get a free pass? The answer is simple. She's a black woman. Her push for DEI is self-serving because she embodies the very quotas she benefits from. We all know that the mainstream media tiptoes around this uncomfortable truth, but it's clear that she's playing a character that aligns with her circumstances. This is more than just rhetoric. It's a calculated grift. She's turned her venom into a lucrative side hustle.
I don't know how the Democrats came to appoint Jasmine Crockett as the unquestioned leader of your party, but thank God. And I think what she should do is go on TV twice as much as she is right now, maybe 3 times as much, because every time she appears and makes one of these mistakes, says something radical, it only further divides her party from the rest of the other 80% of America who can't stand this. But the problem is there's an audience for it. I heard Jimmy Kimmel's audience cheering on Tesla vandalism. I hear the Daily Show audience cheering on attacks on Elon Musk. I hear the human rights audience cheering on an attack on a man in a wheelchair. And I realize this is what the left has become, an angry mob of people who are cheering on attacks on a guy in a wheelchair and vandalism against people who bought a Tesla. It's pathetic.
Selling t-shirts that feature derogatory phrases like white tears, all while profiting off the very hate she spreads to fund the Democratic Party. you can bet she's pocketing a considerable share for herself. She radiates an opportunistic energy, always looking for ways to capitalize on situations for easy cash. Trustworthiness isn't in her vocabulary, and her disdain is evident in Congress. Take, for instance, her disgraceful jibe at Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who has been paralyzed since '84.
Because we in these hot-ass Texas streets, honey. Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now. And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot-ass mess, honey. So yes.
She also dismissed his disability online, claiming she was addressing his policies. A weak justification that nobody buys.
So she says this: I wasn't thinking about the governor's condition. I was thinking about the planes, trains, and automobiles he used to transfer migrants into communities led by black mayors, deliberately stoking tension and fear among the most vulnerable. Literally, the next line I said was that he was a hot A mess, referencing his terrible policies. At no point did I mention or allude to his condition, so I'm even more appalled that the very people who unequivocally support Trump, a man known for racially insensitive nicknames and mocking those with disabilities, are now outraged.
She knows she won't face repercussions. That's why her antics are escalating. During Trump's Capitol speech, instead of engaging seriously, she filmed herself and her allies partying and trash-talking the President of the United States as if it were a reality show, completely disregarding the decorum expected in the Capitol, the seat of American democracy. She frequently proclaims, "When I walk into Congress every single day, I know that I had to work 10 times as hard as white people just to get into the seat." Hard work matters, but let's be clear. Crockett is a millionaire black congresswoman. She's hardly disadvantaged. Yet she continues to play the victim, painting MAGA supporters as racists voting for the other racist, all without any proof. This isn't simply about race. It's about the toxic culture she embodies, a culture of whining and victimhood while gaming the system. Being ghetto isn't exclusive to any single race. People of all backgrounds can embody that attitude. Yet, Crockett has become the emblem of this behavior, spewing disrespect in the halls of Congress while evading any sense of accountability. She's an embarrassment, actively working to dismantle American values. The essence of American culture is decency, neighborliness, and integrity, not sacrificing fellow Americans for the benefit of another group. It's about doing what's best for the country as a whole, not just one's race. Sure, you can act wild in private, but publicly, especially in Congress, show some dignity. When she first assumed office, she attempted to present herself professionally, but now, she's a walking joke. Most people are not laughing with her, they're laughing at her. Yet she continues to operate without accountability, profiting from her cruelty. Crockett's increasingly erratic behavior is alarming. She swatted a reporter's phone out of his hands in the Capitol when Charles Downs questioned her about an anti-Tesla call, leading to assault claims that were met with silence from the system.
Congresswoman Crockett, you were recently on a Tesla takedown call calling for violence on the 29th. Would you like to clarify your comments?
As you can see.
Congresswoman, will you condone violence at the Tesla?
Now, as a result of that confrontation, according to Laura Loomer, the D.C. correspondent that works with her, his name is Charles Downs, filed an actual police report. Now, I'm of the opinion this is going to go nowhere. I think it's a waste of energy, to be honest with you guys. I think the best way forward is to vote her out. I mean, that's just what the bottom line is, because I don't think she's going to get expelled. She may get censured, but voting them out seems to do the trick.
If Crockett really cared about black culture, she'd stop pointing fingers at white people for problems African Americans face today. It's not white folks holding them down. It's self-inflicted wounds. They vote Democrat because they swallow the lies, hook, line, and sinker. That is why you see the switch that black males made. They know that the Democratic leadership is just selling them lies for their own financial gain. They expect that the black vote is a sure thing. There have been no changes. Even after voting for a black president for 2 terms, there was still no change. No, they just say the other side is racist white men who are holding them down and think they are not equal. That's just a scare tactic, but it won't work anymore. Black men are the stepping stone for the black community. They know they don't need handouts to be equal to their fellow Americans. And the black women should be happy their men feel that way. But no, they just say they are bootlickers to the white men. Now, I'm going to present 2 short clips featuring a powerful black woman and a strong black man. Both possess incredible voices and offer valuable advice, yet they've been unjustly turned away by the black community. Watch and see for yourself. Let me know in the comments if you would accept or turn these two away.
If you believe that a room full of 100 people has to have 13 black members because that's the breakdown of society and you only find 5 qualified candidates, how do you get to your 13-member quota? You have to drop the standard in order to get more minorities in the room. Well, what does that do for the 5 members that got there based off their merit? What does that do for me, who has a Juris Doctorate, my wife, who has a master's degree, and has served in corporate rooms for 20 years? What does that do for me, who was already in the room? What happens is the other 87 members look at all of us as though the reason we're present is because of the DEI policies. You diminish my presence there based off my merit because you want to try to provide for a phantom land where every boardroom, every university, every classroom, every chamber should represent equally the diversity of the United States. That's unfeasible.
Policies are harmful also to the people that they purport to help. And we have all of the evidence there to look at. When you artificially place a Black American into a school in which they do not belong based on their knowledge, doesn't mean that they go on to get A's. In fact, there was a Black adjunct professor, you guys have definitely heard of him, Dr. Thomas Sowell, who was teaching at Cornell University, and he found that the majority of the Black American students that were there were on academic probation. Now, these students were some of the smartest in the nation, but because they were artificially placed amongst their peers at Cornell University, they were failing on academic probation. These policies have never helped Black Americans. It's just basically policies that are put in place to make people feel good, right? I feel like I'm doing something when in fact I'm actually creating harm. You either know the answers or you don't.
Boom. And this is the problem with so many leftist policies. They make you feel nice and warm and fuzzy, and you can say cool words like equity, and you can claim to be the champions of the oppressed minorities while sitting around eating tofu and drinking kombucha with your lib friends. But the fact of the matter is that they just don't work, because you cannot engineer equality of outcome without destroying equality of opportunity. It is actually impossible. And the admissions process is a perfect example. If you put somebody at the top of the line, somebody misses out. Why do they miss out? Because of the color of their skin. That is racist. And this is why I way prefer what Kevin Hart does, for example. He actually goes into these inner city communities in Harlem, for example, and he'll teach them all about financial literacy and responsibility. But you see, there's one big problem with that approach. If you teach them how to stand on their own 2 feet, they won't be dependent on you anymore, because they may just realize that all of those opportunities that you told them that they can't have because of the color of their skin were right under their noses the whole time. Now let's watch Candace continue to take scalps, but just watch closely here the language that they use. It is such a typical tactic. They hide behind fluffy words like holistic and constellation because that's all they know how to do. They can't actually break down what they mean in any logical way, and Candace is having none of it.
You're right about Thomas Sowell. He also said equal opportunity policies are against racism. Affirmative action is racism under new management. He said it just doesn't work, it doesn't help, and never has, and he tracked this over like 50 years. And he's a Black professor, by the way.
It almost seems like you guys refuse to accept that, Black students aren't performing well. You feel like you have to have this burden of responsibility when in fact, if you actually wanted to help, you would look at the facts, re-examine the fact that it's not helping anybody. It's not helping Black Americans to artificially place them into universities, and you'd make effective change.
But you're making the assumption that Black students are academically inferior, and they're not.
No,
they're
you
some
are
of our
actually.
most brilliant students
that's
that we
the
have.
basic. No. That you are making the assumption that they're inferior.
You
It
just
is
said
why
that they
you
don't
want
belong there.
policies. I'm talking about the students that are based on the policies that you are defending right now, saying that we should have these policies that let them into these universities, not based on their skill set, but based on the color of their skin. So you are assuming that they are inferior.
These people are no match for Candace, and they do not belong on a stage.
Let me
with her.
wrap up this video with a powerful clip from Matt Walsh at the Daily Wire. First, we'll see Jasmine Crockett openly admitting she was a DEI hire. Then, he'll present some uncomfortable but critical statistics, including the heartbreaking story of a 17-year-old football star who was murdered by a young Black male. If Crockett genuinely cares about the future of the Black community, these are the issues she should be addressing. Keep an open mind, and let's watch.
So during a House Judiciary Subcommittee on Oversight meeting, Crockett admitted, for some reason, that she was a DEI hire. And this, of course, is the same person who has spent many months and years claiming that DEI basically doesn't exist and that the whole concept of a DEI hire is not real. And yet here she is just coming out and admitting it openly. Listen.
When I first became a public defender, I had no criminal defense experience. And I walked in and I told my boss, Charlie, I said, listen, you should hire me. He said, why? I said, because I'm black. Charlie looked at me like I was crazy.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yes, that's now Fox News has the rest of that quote, which isn't in the clip for some reason, but she continued and said, and I said, let me tell you something. When I walk in, I'm going to walk in with a level of rapport and understanding that maybe some of my other colleagues will not. Charlie offered me my job, and I worked my butt off, and I worked really, really hard for all of my clients, not just those that look like me. That's what it looks like to serve. Okay, so yes, there you go. Yes, that's DEI hiring. This is indeed Jasmine Crockett admitting that she was a DEI hire. She got hired to a position where she had no experience, all because she was black. And that was her only qualification, or at least that was her main qualification, according to herself. Now, ironically, of course, a lot of black defendants ended up getting the short end of the stick here. It was most likely predominantly black people who ended up, on the losing end of Jasmine Crockett being a DEI hire. Because imagine that you're charged with a crime and they give you a public defender and you ask the defender what her qualifications are, and she tells you, oh, well, I'm black. Don't worry, you're in good hands. I'm black.
Mainstream media is dodging the real story happening in America, and it's time we acknowledge it. Jason Whitlock from ESPN has pointed out a hard truth that many refuse to confront. America is ignoring a serious issue. Now, let's flip the script. Imagine if a white teen had killed a black teen, no matter the circumstances. The statistics show that there are more black-on-white homicides, yet mainstream media disproportionately focuses on white-on-black cases. These uncomfortable conversations are essential. We need to confront these realities head-on to unite as a true United States of America. It's time to take action. And now it's time for that uncomfortable but true conversation. Let's watch.
White Americans who observed that cities were becoming much more dangerous, for example, were not supposed to flee to the suburbs for the safety of their families. Rather than engage in white flight, they were supposed to stay put and enjoy the fruits of diversity. This campaign has been going on for several generations, and as we all know, the cities aren't any safer. They're far more dangerous in every respect. But our leaders are undeterred. The mandate of total conformity, the war on noticing, is still underway. And that's why you probably haven't heard the story of a white 19-year-old Berkeley student named Seth Smith. Now, 5 years ago, Seth Smith was shot in the back of the head while he was out for a walk near campus. There was no warning. It was not an attempted robbery or anything like that. In fact, Seth Smith still had his headphones on when his body was discovered. And when investigators identified the killer and began questioning him, he complained, quote, "A white kid gets killed and the whole damn world stops. F that white mother effer." Now, Seth Smith's killer, as you might have guessed, was black. And in response, there were no CNN segments about a modern-day lynching. There was no national outcry. Instead, a few months later, the Biden administration declared that white supremacy is the greatest threat facing the nation. Not long afterwards, a white Philadelphia parking enforcement officer named Tim McKenzie was nearly executed in a similar fashion. He was shot in the back of the head by a black man while he was on the job the day after Thanksgiving. This, again, was not a robbery or the result of any kind of altercation. Security camera footage shows that the two men did not interact in any way before the shooting. As Tim McKenzie crumbled to the ground with a bullet lodged in his skull that would take surgeons 15 weeks to remove, the shooter immediately ran away. And again, national media buried the story. You weren't supposed to notice that it happened. In 2023, there was a similar response, or lack thereof, when a white handyman named Lawrence Herr was murdered while he was fixing his elderly mother's mailbox in a suburb of New Orleans. We talked about the murder on this show at the time, but no other major media outlet has ever been interested in the story. Two black men had taken the day off of their jobs at IHOP in order to find a white person to murder. That was their explicit goal, which they later admitted to police. They wanted to go hunting for white people. And so when they saw Lawrence Herr, they circled the block a few times before gunning him down and leaving him to die in the street. No words were exchanged, no altercation. Their only motive was that Lawrence Herr was white. So these two black men decided that he had to die. That same year, a white social worker named Leah Rosen Pritchard was butchered with a hatchet while she worked in a homeless shelter in Vermont. And again, not a robbery, not the result of an altercation. It was a premeditated murder that was not provoked in any way. And after the killing, a local prosecutor remarked, "What hits personally for me is that there are definitely larger community conversations that we need to have, but we can't escape and we can't ignore." Now, whatever community conversations this liberal prosecutor in Vermont had in mind, it's hard to say. Apparently, she can't say either because she never explained what she meant. But her general sentiment, at least, is absolutely correct. It's time to talk about something that nobody in mainstream politics is willing to talk about, which is why there are so many black people, young black males in particular, committing violent crimes, and why they're committing so many crimes against white people. Now, for years, it's been obvious that this violence would only become more overt and intolerable as a major political party in this country openly encouraged anti-white race hatred. And indeed, that's exactly what's been happening. The lynchings, as the media would call these killings if the races were reversed, are continuing in broad daylight. And they're becoming harder and harder to ignore despite the best efforts of the media. And on Wednesday, as you may have seen, the latest instance of black on white homicide took place in Frisco, Texas, which is a short drive from Dallas. A white 17-year-old high school junior named Austin Metcalf was stabbed to death by a black athlete at a championship track meet, which was being held at a local stadium. But what kind of fight was it exactly? Did Austin Metcalf attack his killer first? Why exactly would somebody bring a knife to a track meet? And where exactly did the murder take place? Apparently, none of these questions seem relevant to the local Fox affiliate that aired that report. Pretty much all the reporting has been like this. You're supposed to gloss over details from the arrest affidavit, which states that the black athlete Carmelo Anthony was spotted in a tent that was reserved for Memorial High School, even though he was competing for a different school called Centennial. And that's when Austin Metcalf, who was running for Memorial High School, told Carmelo Anthony to get out of the tent. In response, one witness says that Anthony opened his bag and reached inside. Then he told Metcalf, quote, "Touch me and see what happens." And at some point, Metcalf reportedly grabbed Anthony or his backpack to get him out of the tent. In response, according to the affidavit, Anthony pulled a knife from his bag, stabbed Metcalf in the heart, and ran away as Metcalf bled out. And police say that he then threw the murder weapon into the stands in order to hide the evidence. Those are facts that look a lot like premeditation. I mean, after all, bringing a deadly weapon into the opposing team's tent during a track meet and then daring them to touch you so that you can stab them is exactly the kind of thing you'd do if you wanted to find a pretext to kill someone. And of course, if you had just defended yourself in any kind of legitimate way, you probably wouldn't flee the scene and then throw the murder weapon. The local news station, they don't want to talk about these aspects of the story because they might lead to some unapproved conclusions. It's the same reason they don't show you Carmelo Anthony's recent social media posts. And you can look at these two images here. As you can see, Carmelo Anthony has an evil grin while extending his middle finger towards the camera. In other images, he's hoisting a gun in the air. By contrast, here are Austin Metcalf's recent posts. He's celebrating that his hard work paid off and that he won linebacker of the year in football, as well as team VP, and also team MVP rather. And just a week ago, he was writing about his faith in God and all the hard work paying off. So the contrast could not be more obvious or more predictable. Now, the reason these images aren't being played in prime time by every news outlet is the same reason they showed you the childhood images of Michael Brown and Trayvon Martin and so on, instead of the images where they were wearing gold teeth or flashing gang signs. They're trying to short circuit your pattern recognition. You're not supposed to notice that posing like a thug and acting like one is a commonly accepted aspect of black culture in this country. Everybody knows that's true, but no one's supposed to say it. Because young black males are violent to a wildly, outrageously disproportionate degree. That is a fact. The races reverse scenario would almost certainly not happen. Okay, black people don't have to worry about being murdered in cold blood if they say something slightly irritating to a random white person. White people have a lot more reason to worry the other way around. the statistics on this point could not be more stark. And really any stat you look at bears it out. But let's just look at this, for example. From 2010 to 2020, as one of my followers pointed out to me yesterday, there were a total of 14,689 black on white homicides. By contrast, there were just 6,148 white on black homicides. This is in spite of the fact that there are over 200 million white people in this country and only 40 million black people. And so that means that adjusting for population size, a black person is approximately 12 times more likely to kill a white person than vice versa. 12 times more likely. Now, when you look at violent crime in general, the disparity is even wider. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, in 2019, there were 562,550 violent interracial incidents involving blacks and whites. A total of 472,570 of these incidents, 84% of them, were black on white. And adjusting for population size, that means that it's about 28% more likely that a black person will violently attack a white person than the other way around. Actually, not 28%, that's 28 times, right? Not 28%, it's quite a bit more than that. And that includes robbery, rape, assault, and so on. Now, to clarify, I'm talking about a very small subset of the population here. Almost all of the violent crime among black people and people of any race is committed by young males. Well, there are 20 million black males in the country, 40 million black people, 20 million black males about in the country, which only accounts for about 7% of the American population. So if we were to take out all of the black males over the age of 36 from these calculations, you'd realize quickly that it is a very small portion of the population that is committing a hugely, astronomically disproportionate amount of violent crime. According to FBI statistics, the 18 to 34 age range dominates violent crime statistics to the point that it makes up something like 50 to 60% of all arrests. And again, that's general of all races. Overall, somewhere around 50% of the murders in this country are committed by black people, and about 35% of non-fatal violent crime is committed by the same group. Again, these crimes are being committed by less than 13% of the population. So in other words, there's clearly a massive problem in black culture, specifically as it relates to younger black males. And contrary to what the media will claim, this is not a problem that can be solved by eliminating systemic racism, alleged systemic racism, or sending reparations to the black community. The New York Times, of all places, made this very clear in its reporting a few years ago. Here's what they wrote in the New York Times. And this is one of the most remarkable statistics that you'll ever hear. Quote, the sons of black families from the top 1% had about the same chance of being incarcerated on a given day as the sons of white families earning $36,000 a year. Now, I'll say that again for emphasis. The sons of black families from the top 1% economically had about the same chance of being incarcerated on a given day as the sons of white families earning $36,000 a year. So that means pretty clearly that the legacy of slavery or whatever does not explain the statistical propensity for violence that we see among young black males. No amount of affirmative action or DEI can solve the problem. Reparations are not going to fix this. It is a much deeper issue. So then, what does explain these statistics? Well, we've discussed many times that roughly 70% of black children are born to single mothers. That's far higher than any other demographic group on the planet. And it's obviously a major contributing factor. No demographic group can remain productive and functional members of society if their children are routinely abandoned by their fathers. But at the same time, we still have to explain why exactly all of these black fathers are abandoning their children. You know, we have to solve the cause of the problem rather than talking about just the symptoms. Jason Whitlock wrote this on X yesterday, quote, quit imagining if the roles were reversed and reverse your role in the insanity. Boldly state there's a problem with American black culture and that we all must reject and fight against a demonic culture that defines blackness as loud, violent, entitled, hedonistic, materialistic, ghetto, prison, victimhood, profane, matriarchal, and tatted. Loudly and boldly reject so-called black culture. It separates black people from Christ. Reject the idols of black degeneracy, Snoop, Kendrick, Dr. Dre, Jay-Z, Cardi B, etc., all demons. Now, this is a black man saying this, of course, and it's probably worth paying attention to. Now, of course, much of modern culture across the board is, as Jason says, demonic. The glorification of materialism, of hedonism, and so on is not a feature exclusive to black culture. But these problems are obviously significantly more pronounced in the black community. And black culture is therefore producing a lot of very angry, very violent young men who do not value human life, their own or anyone else's. This is a fact borne out by both statistics and individual experience of pretty much everyone in the country. This is a real problem. We all know it. We have to stop pretending that we don't know it. Now, is this the only cause for dysfunction in black communities? Of course not. I mean, anyone who tells you that there's an easy solution here is lying to you. The roots of this problem are deep and far-reaching and tangled in many different directions. But we know with certainty that we'll never identify those roots if we can't speak honestly about it. Every academic is required to believe that any negative statistic involving racial disparities in the aggregate, whether it's SAT scores or violent crime or anything else, must be the result of systemic racism and nothing else. As a corollary, we're required to believe that every statistical discrepancy can be solved with liberal social engineering. Well, this approach has been a disaster for this country. Too many people of all races have been killed because statistics and common sense and open debates are now effectively outlawed. We constantly hear about the need for an uncomfortable conversation about race. We hear this all the time. Well, this is it. This is the uncomfortable conversation. And for Austin Metcalf's sake, and the sake of countless other victims, both white and black, it's time that we finally start having it.
I warned you that this would be uncomfortable and likely triggering for many. But let's face the facts. These Democratic leaders are betraying their own people for their personal gain, whether it's for money, power, or simply to maintain their position in the club. They are millionaires acting like they struggle every day like you do. They're living comfortable lives in gated communities, while they stir shit up in the streets or online. It's these same leaders who are fueling division among us. And let's talk about diversity in the NBA. Imagine if half the starting players were required to be white. People would be outraged, and the game would suffer because of it. So why should it be any different in the conversations we're having about DEI or other comparisons? If there was more white NBA players, I would bet they would say something then, but I'd like to see you all take that debate to the comments. If you find the content meaningful, please consider liking and subscribing to help spread the message to others who might benefit from it. Your support makes a difference, and it means a lot. If anyone has questions or needs guidance, I'm here to listen. If you're curious about my ethnicity, whether I'm white, black, Hispanic, or something else, I'm simply American. Hit that notification button to be updated with what's going on in the world, in case you missed it.
When Donald Trump rose to his feet in that Pennsylvania field, all of America stood with him.